Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Now with today's main headlines. Chinese secret police stations in the UK operated to intimidate Uyghurs and activists. US Muslim group urges Congress to cancel Indian Prime Minister's address. Shia population under siege, Taliban's war crime of collective punishment in Panjshir province. Efforts of the Indian Shia community in Hyderabad to ensure a safe Muharram procession. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers, this is Hussein Jawad and you're watching Shia Waves live from Imam Hussein TV 3 in London. The UK government has confirmed that the Chinese communist regime was operating secret police stations in the country, with Belfast, London and Glasgow suspected to have hosted one. The stations were reportedly used to monitor and intimidate Chinese citizens living in the UK, often including activists that raise concerns against the Uyghur genocide in China or general Uyghurs in the diaspora to stop them from speaking out about what is happening in the mainland. The confirmation has raised concerns about the regime's influence on British soil. The revelation has promoted calls for a review of the UK's relationship with China and for stronger measures to protect the rights and the safety of the Chinese nationals in the country. A prominent US-based Muslim group, the Muslim Advocacy Council, MAC, has called on Congress to cancel the scheduled address of the Indian Prime Minister to the joint session of the United States Congress. MAC urges and argues that hosting the Indian leader would imply endorsement of the policies and actions that they have claimed and targeted and marginalized Muslims in India. MAC's request is based on concerns regarding the controversial Citizenship and Amendment Act (CAA) in India, which critiques and discriminates against Muslims. They also cite the revocation of Article 370, which granted special status to the Muslim majority region of Jammu and Kashmir, as a reason for their demand. The Muslim community within the United States has expressed deep reservations about the alleged human rights abuses in India and sees the invitation to the Indian Prime Minister as an opportunity to voice their concerns. Supporters argue that cancelling the address would send a strong message against the erosion of minority rights in India. The controversy has sparked a polarized debate among lawmakers, with some supporting the MAC's request, emphasizing that they need to address human rights issues. Others argue that hosting the Indian Prime Minister allows for dialogue and diplomacy. Congress now faces the challenging task of navigating these competing interests and determining the most appropriate course of action. While the fate of the Indian's Prime Minister address remains uncertain, the MAC's demand has succeeded in raising awareness about the concerns of the US Muslim community and has sparked broader discussions about religious freedom and human rights on an international scale. The recent surge in violence by the Taliban in Panjshir province has unleashed a wave of terror specifically aimed at the Shia population. We will be going to my colleague for this following report.
These attacks, driven by religious sectarianism, represent a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. The Taliban's deliberate and systematic targeting of Shia civilians and their cultural and religious symbols exemplify a grotesque form of collective punishment. Eyewitnesses' accounts and reports from Panjshir province paint a grim picture of the suffering endured by Shia civilians at the hands of the Taliban. Shia neighbourhoods have been the primary targets of indiscriminate shelling, killings and wanton destruction of religious sites and infrastructure. The Taliban's actions have created an atmosphere of fear and despair, forcing Shia communities to flee their homes, leaving behind everything they hold dear. The consequences of the Taliban's biased attacks on the Shia population are catastrophic. Families are torn apart, livelihoods are destroyed, and communities are uprooted from their ancestral lands. The humanitarian crisis unfolding in Panjshir province is a direct result of the Taliban sectarian violence, which has left Shia civilians without access to basic necessities such as food, water, and medical care. Schools and hospitals that once served the community now lie in ruins, exacerbating the suffering of the already vulnerable population. In the face of these grave violations of human rights, the international community must not remain silent. The targeting of Shia civilians and the destruction of their places of worship demand swift and decisive action. The United Nations and other relevant bodies must investigate these war crimes, hold the perpetrators accountable, and provide immediate humanitarian aid to those affected. Countries around the world have a moral responsibility to condemn the Taliban's sectarian violence and support the oppressed Shia population in Panjshir province. Diplomatic efforts, economic sanctions, and other necessary measures should be deployed to pressure the Taliban to cease these acts of collective punishment and respect the fundamental rights of all citizens. The international community must rally together to condemn these war crimes and ensure the protection and well-being of the oppressed Shia population. Only through swift and resolute action can we hope to create a world where sectarian violence and collective punishment have no place, and where the rights and dignity of all individuals are respected regardless of their religious beliefs. Reporting Aruj Fatma for Shia Waves.
Thank you, Aruj, for the following report. Let's remind our respected viewers of today's headlines. Chinese secret police stations in the UK operated to intimidate Uyghurs and activists. US Muslim group urges Congress to cancel Indian Prime Minister's address. Shia population under siege, Taliban's war crime of collective punishment in Panjshir province. Efforts of the Indian Shia community in Hyderabad to ensure a safe Muharram procession. Also, tonight, Chinese Muslims told to preach communism in mosques. Hyderabad, India Anjuman-e Mutawallin, a Muslim organization, has taken steps to ensure a safe and peaceful Muharram procession in Hyderabad. The organization has collaborated with local authorities to ensure the welfare of custodians and participants. They have also set up a medical camps and made arrangements for the distribution of water and food. The organization has appealed to the people to observe Muharram with the utmost reverence and to maintain social distancing norms. The Anjuman-e Mutawallin's efforts have garnered praise from the community for their dedication towards the safety of the procession. And now we continue with some short news. UNICEF confirms in a report that 300 trapped children were rescued from a Sudanese orphanage after 71 others died. Among the children who died at the facility were babies as young as 3 months, according to activities in the area. Causes of death, the report adds, include circulatory collapse, as well as a fever, dehydration, malnutrition, and failure to thrive. It should be mentioned that the online campaign to relocate the children began after 26 children died in 2 days in late May. The Afzal family were killed in a deliberate Islamophobic attack 2 years ago. The 4 family members were moved into by a pickup driver who specifically targeted them due to their faith. 3 generations of the Muslim Canadian family were killed, leaving a 9-year-old child orphaned. Around 1,000 Londoners came together on Tuesday evening to host a vigil at the corner of Hyde Park Road and South Carriage Road, where the attack happened. In the face of this resilience, we continue to see aggressions against Muslims. Nawaz Tahir, chair of the Hikmah Public Affairs Council, told the gathered Londoners. He called for action on the past promises made by the provincial and federal governments. An explosion took place inside a mosque in northern Afghanistan earlier today during the funeral of the provincial deputy governor who was killed in an attack this week, a provincial official has said. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for a car bomb on Tuesday that killed the deputy governor. The explosion had caused casualties but did not clarify how many, according to the Mahzudeen Ahmadi, the head of the Information Office of the Northern Badakhshan province. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for greater action to protect oceans in this message to mark World Oceans Day on Thursday. The UNICEF chief said human-induced climate change is heating the planet, disrupting weather patterns and ocean currents, and altering marine ecosystems and the species living there. We should be the ocean's best friend, but right now humanity is its worst enemy, he said, pointing to the evidence. Marine biodiversity is also under attack from overfishing, overexploitation and ocean acidification. Fish stocks are being depleted and coastal waters have been polluted with chemicals, plastics and human wastes. Lawyers in Myanmar defending anti-coup protests and critics have faced threats, arrest and prosecution by the military junta. Human Rights Watch report says, adding that those detained have been tortured and mistreated. According to the report, the military authorities impose systematic obstacles and restrictions on lawyers, impeding their work. HRW demands Myanmar's junta to urgently restore civilian democratic rule. It requires concerned governments to impose targeted sanctions against junta members implicating in abuses, seek referral of Myanmar to the International Criminal Court, and adopt a global arms embargo. The Chinese government has recently intensified its control over the country's Muslim population, and the latest move involves instructing mosques to promote communism as well. We will be going to our colleague Ali Hussein, who will be reporting further.
According to reports, state officials in the northern province of Ningxia have been holding meetings with mosque leaders, telling them to integrate communist ideology into their sermons. This move is part of the Chinese Communist Party's ongoing efforts to sinicize religion, which involves forcing religious groups to adopt Chinese culture and Communist Party ideology. The government has been cracking down on Islam in particular, with reports of mosques being demolished and Muslims being sent to internment camps for re-education. The officials have reportedly told mosque leaders that they should guide the believers to love the party, love the country, and to obey laws and regulations. They have also been instructed to promote patriotic education and the core socialist values in their sermons. This move has been met with resistance from some Muslims in Ningxia who feel that it goes against the principles of their faith. They argue that their religion is separate from politics and that the government has no right to interfere in their religious practices. The Chinese government has also been accused of using religion to promote its own political agenda. In Xinjiang province, where the majority of the population is Muslim, the government has been accused of using Islamic symbols and language to promote its policies while cracking down on the practice of Islam itself. The international community has expressed concern over the Chinese government's treatment of its Muslim population. The United Nations has called for an end to the internment camps in Xinjiang, and several countries have criticized China's human rights record. The latest move to promote communism in mosques is likely to further exacerbate tensions between the Chinese government and its Muslim population. It remains to be seen how the mosque leaders in Ningxia will respond to these instructions and whether they will be able to resist the government's attempts to control their religious practices. This is Ali Hussein for Shia Waves.
Thank you very much, Ali Hussein, for the report. Now on to Edmonton, Canada. An Edmonton teacher is facing backlash after a recording surfaced this month of her criticizing her Muslim students for not attending Pride events. The teacher, who has not identified, can be heard lambasting her students, saying that their absence is a hateful and bigoted gesture. The recording has sparked outrage on social media, with many accusing the teacher of Islamophobia and calling for disciplinary action to be taken. The Edmonton Public School Board has said that they are investigating the incident. We have reached the end of today's Shia Waves show. Let's remind our dear viewers of today's headlines. Chinese secret police stations in the UK operated to intimidate Uyghurs and activists. US Muslim group urges Congress to cancel Indian Prime Minister's address. Shia population under siege, Taliban's war crime of collective punishment in Pajinchir province. Efforts of the Indian Shia community in Hyderabad to ensure a safe Muharram procession. Chinese Muslims told to preach communism in mosques. Canadian teacher faces backlash after criticizing Muslim students for skipping Pride events. You can view the latest news on our Shia Waves website, and you can send news of your city or country to be published on our news agency. Contact us on the numbers at the bottom of the screen. This is the end of today's news. Thank you very much for watching. We pray to Allah Almighty to hasten the appearance of the Master of our time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I am the sun, the star at the center of your universe. I am a wondrous threat made of hydrogen and helium.